What's up everybody, Byron here from ETA. Welcome back. So if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I am all about the DIY. I love my skateboards, I love my cars, I love my fun little projects. I also love my guns. So this is a CZ P07. This has been a holy grail for me. I have wanted one of these for quite a while. Check it out, OD green, 9mm. Standard capacity is 15 rounds because I live in a free state. Mine does have one of the captured recoil springs. So, fun fact, if you happen to have one of these pistols, make sure you snug that bad boy up and put some thread locker on it. There's a little bit of adjustment in there if you want to adjust how it's running, or I don't know why you would want to adjust it. For me, fully compressed runs perfectly fine, but you can take it apart to change out the recoil spring, for example, should you choose to. And it is a steel guide rod. I cannot say beyond a shadow of a doubt if all of the CZ P07s came that way, but mine sure as heck did. In case you couldn't tell, I am like really excited. I have wanted one of these for a very long time. I tried out the first generation of the CZ P07, which was the CZ P07 Duty, and I didn't really care for it. I do have a CZ P01, absolutely love the thing. It has been probably one of the best pistols I've ever owned in my life. Absolutely hands down. So this happens to be the polymer version of it, and even with my big old paws, I find that the medium grip frame seems to suit me the best. This is going to be a EDC setup, but one of the things, and the P01 to a certain extent, but the P07 in particular, people feel it has a really atrocious trigger pull. I don't actually think it's all that bad personally, but that's me. I'm used to DASA guns. When I was in the Army, I probably put somewhere around 500,000 through a M9 Beretta. Just over the course of, instructing people and teaching them and handling it and having fun. So I like the concept of a decocker on my pistol. I have no problem carrying cocked and locked. My EDC happens to be an aluminum frame 1911. Not necessarily because I love the guns, I do, but I just happen to shoot that better than anything else except this. It does have a rather heavy trigger pull. What's involved with getting a better trigger pull? I'm glad you asked. So there's a couple of different ways to get there. I went the Mcarbo route. This is like 20 something bucks. I had, they actually got it out to me the day after a hurricane sent it to me. I had them 2 days. That's pretty incredible. Yeah, that's all I got to say. So, Mcarbo, hope you're watching. First thing we're going to have to do, obviously you're going to have to disassemble the pistol. If you don't have the technical know-how to get to this point, well, I hope that you keep watching. Maybe I can give you a little bit of confidence or maybe a little inspiration. I'm a big believer in doing things yourself if you can do it yourself. So the second option, if you're lazy or you just don't want to deal with it or whatever, is you can send it to a place called Cajun Gun Works. They're over in Louisiana. Mcarbo also accepts P07 CZ trigger jobs as well. Personally, I think that you should do it, especially if you're going to be using this pistol as an everyday carry. I've got a pretty nice holster being constructed by Eric up at HBE, so I'm really looking forward to that. Shout out Eric. I'm going to give you a review once your holster gets in. You're going to need snap caps if you own this pistol, and I'm going to show you why. This is one of the biggest downsides of the design, and I don't really consider it to be a downside, just for the record. If you educate yourself and you are not the village idiot, read the owner's manual. This little guy right here More focus? Yeah, there we go. Good camera. I love using this camera. This little pin right here sits in a groove, which you guys are going to see later, but it sits in a groove inside the firing pin. And so that's what retains the compressed firing pin spring into the slide. So the hammer launches it forward, and if there's nothing to take the shock here, that's why you use a snap cap. See if I can get it to lock in here real quick. So, there we go. Check that out, isn't that cool? So, when the firing pin is constantly hitting an empty chamber and there's nothing to take the shock, you run the potential to do two things. Number one, you have the potential to break the firing pin and the firing pin retaining pin, which is a wear item. So, Mcarbo includes a upgraded, significantly stronger than factory firing pin retaining pin in their kit. Alrighty, so now we're all reset with my cool handy dandy tripod. You're going to need a bench block of some variety. Obviously, the firearm. You're going to need a brass face, plastic faced small hammer, because these, you don't really want to wail on it. And you're going to need a punch set. Now, fun fact, you can get, this was a couple of bucks on Mcarbo, this is a couple of bucks on Mcarbo, this is a couple of bucks on Mcarbo. You don't, the other thing I just want to kind of flex real quick on my CZ nerdiness. I picked up this beautiful tech mat, and as you can see, it's got a fully exploded parts diagram for the CZ P07. It's one of the reasons I liked it. I did mention that this is a holy grail gun. One of the other reasons that I happened to pick this particular mat is, well, when I clean my guns in the house, my wife gets angry. Reason number two, go back and see reason number one, and reason number three, also go back and see reason number one. I love my wife. She's an amazing woman. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful woman. So we're just going to frame that back up. All right, so you're going to need a lubricant of some variety because you're going to be using 1000 grit sandpaper with this operation. Okay? So we are going to go ahead, and I think I'm going to do this a little bit smart, hopefully. And we're going to line up. There's two springs in here that you have to fiddle with, and you're going to have to remove. And this is not the easiest pistol in the world to take down. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I've done this quite a bit. I'm not just a gunsmith. I also, you know, play one on TV, and I slept at a Holiday Inn Express, or whatever else you want to say. I like to just think that I'm not a total idiot. Just maybe 50%. So I've got some synthetic grease, PTFE. We're going to be using this as a lubricant when we get to the polishing portion. We're going to go ahead and very gently pop this out. So, as I understand it, we're going to need this, which is the firing pin spring. And we're going to need this, which is the firing pin block spring. It also comes with the trigger return spring. We'll figure it out when we get their spring. We'll also figure it out when we get their spring. Your upgraded roll pin that is rated at 18,000 pounds of force for shear strength, so it's good. Now, I only want to mess with those springs right now. Part 2 of the video is where I'm going to go and rip apart all of this lovely intricacy here and take that out, and we're really going to get to polishing on that. So why am I doing this? The goal is to clean up and improve the trigger, but not change drastically the characteristics of it, because this is still a defensive pistol. So we're going to go ahead and put up the new parts for right now because we don't need them and we don't want to lose them. And they are pretty tiny springs. All right. So when you're driving this pin out, you have to be cognizant of the firing pin spring. There are two springs that we're going to be dealing with today. This is your firing pin block. So this pops up right when it comes back to here. And the whole purpose of that, this is actually what does that. The whole purpose of that is so that if the gun is not completely in battery, there's a couple thousand PSI worth of pressure in here, right? So if it's open like that, all explosions are going to take the path of least resistance, and thus it will blow out the side, up the top, or possibly even back towards the shooter. None of these are situations that you want to have happen. So you have a disconnector. As this is a mass-produced firearm, they don't really take the time to remove the machine marks and do the finer polishing. So I want you to think of this as less of a trigger pull reduction and more of a simple, you're cleaning up what's already there. What can I say? I'm an optimist at heart. We're going to pop that out, we're going to remove the firing pin, and then we're going to get a look at how it's all situated, and you'll see that this really isn't complicated. So how the hell do you use a bench block? Well, you're going to line it up pretty much like so. You want the pin, you're going to be driving the pin out, and you want the pin to be captured while you're driving it out. And once again, I just want to remind you, you have to keep this compressed because it's also under pressure. These springs, if you don't take proper care and use, just pay attention, these springs do have the potential to end up everywhere. As I'm in a carpeted room, I really don't want to try to find it. All right, so that's all the cool safety stuff. Let's get after it. You're going to find the correct size punch. And fun fact, you can use the roll pin as a guide to know which one it is. Mcarbo sells the 3-piece kit. Comes with all 3 sizes that you're going to need to do this work, because you don't want to ding it while you're driving it out. So in this case, this would be a 1/8 inch punch. So we're going to go ahead and line that up, and we're going to start popping it out. Check our progress. Is it moving? Now you can take a punch and run it in the back, and that'll take some of that pressure off, but it's really, really hard to kind of, get all 3 going at once. So what I'm hoping is that as I drive it, the punch will capture the firing pin. Apologize about the audio in advance. So as you can see, we are making some progress. And as we're driving it out, we're going to feel when you're going to feel it when this takes the place of that roll pin for retaining the firing pin. And that's about the point that you really have to start being cautious with what you're doing. My butthole's puckering because we're just about there, boys and girls. And I'm hoping that I do not launch this goddamn spring out. Definitely under some fucking tension. We are making progress. You want to, practice proper FOD control, and then I don't confuse the old parts with the new parts. We'll be back. Continuing on, I'm just going to use that to hold the old parts, help me keep them contained. All right, and also just so you guys do know, there are 2 positions that are actually retaining this firing pin. So even if you do drive the pin all the way out, you're not going to launch the firing pin yet. However, once you press up on this plunger, that motherfucker's going to shoot into orbit if you're not careful. So you can tell that there's some pressure on this punch. Hope y'all can see that, which is awesome because the P01 also happens to use the same size roll pin, and I happen to own a CZ P01 as well. But what you're going to do is you're going to use the back of a punch. You need to compress, so you're just going to compress it a little bit so you can take that tension off it so that you can release the secondary lock here. So once I pull this punch out, I need a little wiggle room, so we're going to use the larger hole again. And being the punch here, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm compressing the firing pin spring with the punch. And so now, this is what I was talking about. Now we are at the second point. This is the point of no return, ladies and gentlemen. You have to maintain control of 2 different sprung parts. There's a spring for the firing pin block, and there is a spring on the firing pin. So you just want to gently keep hold of it. And if you notice, I'm still depressing the firing pin plunger. Second thing I need you to note is the angle with which the firing pin comes out. See those cool little grooves right there? Those cool little grooves point up, top of the slide. You'll need to know that later. Now you just slowly release the compression, and that's all we're going to be doing right now. So there's the old spring, and there's the old firing pin spring. Making sure everything is good and clear. The next most critical thing that anybody watching at home who's going to attempt this, if you've never done this type of work in your life, you need to understand this area right here is what we're going to be polishing, okay? Don't remove material. That's why we're using the lube and 1000 grit sandpaper and a soft surface. With the soft surface and very little pressure, you're just trying to smooth out the surface. It's a little hard to tell. This one's actually not that bad as I'm in here and looking at it, but I just want to show you. You can still see there's some machine marks and stuff that are in there. So that's all you're trying to do is just kind of polish that. And just so you can kind of understand, when it's all assembled, right, it's riding on the rails here and over here. So when you have that surface polished, a rough surface will catch and create a little bit of additional friction that simply doesn't need to be there, whereas a well-polished surface will not. So once you get it up nice and smooth, right, I'm just going to remove the tooling marks, and I'm going to polish just a slight bit around the outside. We're going to grab our handy dandy flex shaft machine and a little bit of Flitz, which is a standard machine polish. Also comes in the kit here. And we're just going to bring it up to a nice mirror finish. Okay, so I will say it's not that rough. It's not that bad on my particular gun. However, I have seen several others that are quite a bit worse. So when you send your pistol off to Mcarbo or Cajun Gunworks, or actually, to be quite frank, any gunsmith, this is all they're really doing. So I've got a little bit of grease on here. I've got a little bit of grease on here, and we're just gonna very lightly, if you listen carefully, you can hear where it's rough and dragging. So you're not really putting downward pressure on the sandpaper. You're just working it a little bit at a time. That's one of the things. Having a soft surface while you're polishing it allows it to, you know, you can push down a little bit and you won't remove too much material. Anytime you're polishing, you are obviously removing a tiny microscopic little bit of material. But I mean, come on, dude, this is not, you know, I'm not sure you guys can hear that. I bet you can now. So it is definitely polishing up nice, cleaning up nice. And again, remember, you're not using a lot of pressure. Okay, you're just trying to remove any machine marks from it. You can see it's getting better. So now we're all set up with the flexible shaft machine. You don't have to have, you know, a flex shaft, but I mean, it really does help. It makes a big difference. It makes it a lot easier to use. I will put a link down to this machine in the description of this video, because this honestly is a pretty badass little machine. I think it's a bargain personally at like 30 bucks. So it's, I don't know, $70 cheaper than a Dremel tool. So yeah, do with that information what you will. Wear eye protection. You're gonna make a little bit of a mess, okay? You wanna get the bit nice and coated in the flits. Move it around there with your finger. Remember, this is not about pressure and this is not about speed. This is just about taking your time and doing your thing. So the two spots that we're gonna polish are gonna be here, and I'm just gonna bling this a little bit on the firing pin, not a whole lot, but just a little bit. As you can see, there's still a lot of life left in that 1000 grit. And I'm just gonna very, very ever so gently go around here and here inside the slide there, just to make sure that it's completely snag free, okay? We're gonna go ahead and some of that extra polish that I know as soon as I turn this thing on is gonna fling everywhere, I'm just gonna go ahead and put onto the part itself. Remember, you're gonna have to degrease the thing before you put it back in anyway, you will. This is gonna get a little loud. I'm gonna do the best I can. Just get a nice coating of the flits on there. It's a fairly safe product. Absorbed, now we're ready to go. Don't forget your eye protection. We just wanna make that bright metal. Again, we don't want to change any geometry. We just want to nice and smooth. Just a little bit of pressure, that's all. Let the machine do the work. Have an empty mind, as the Buddhists say, and just lose yourself in the work. Because honestly, it's fun. And that is really cleaning up nice and pretty. Ooh, she pretty. She gonna be pretty. There's still just a tiny little, tiny little lip right there. This side is much better now. So all you do is you slide your fingernail across it, okay? And if your fingernail stops, that's where you need to focus. This is part of the drop safety of the gun. So it is kind of a critical component. That is awesome. That is like butter, baby. Butter, 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 butter. And that is all she wrote. Nice, smooth, clean engagement. I wish you guys could see my face right now, because I'm like, I've got a shit-eating grin. Ear to ear right now. Yep, this is beautimous. This is, look at that, bling. She's nice and slick. So now I'm gonna go ahead and grab some isopropyl alcohol. We are going to wipe down those surfaces. Nope, that's pretty good actually. I don't want to fudge with that too much. Nope, I don't want to fudge with that at all. I want to keep that nice and sharp. So, little Q-tips. I'm just going to do a little detail cleaning real quick. 99% isopropyl alcohol. And we're just going to go over it to make sure that there's no polish left. Microfiber is a great thing to use for this also. It's all cleaned up. Let me show you the final results. Look at that. I hope the camera picks up on just how awesome this feels right now, because this really feels good. Very, very happy about that. For those of you that do happen to do this indoors, as you can tell by the white splatter everywhere, it does go everywhere. That's why you wear eye protection when you do this. So now we have the Mcarbo parts, the new ones. We're just going to go ahead and pop it out. Table again, link in the description below. This thing honestly kicks ass. I've used a lot of different rotary tools over the years. I am quite satisfied with this. So before you get too far, make sure you wipe up all your little bits of polish everywhere. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. That is damn near a mirror finish on there. We're just going to put a little dot of grease right here. And what this is going to do, number one, provide a little lubrication, which is not a bad thing. And number two, it's going to help stick it so it doesn't get lost. I'll be doing the install on these tomorrow. So stay tuned for part 2. And just to make sure everything is absolutely clean on the inside, I'm going to go ahead and get another Q-tip here with the isopropyl alcohol. And just to make sure we don't have any weird debris or burrs, I'm going to go ahead and run this down in there. As you can see, it's a little funky. I mean, it happens. And we're just going to remove any additional crud that could get in my way. Might as well clean the front of the breech face while I'm at it. Give everything that final wipe down, because this bad boy's got to go in. And this goes in just like so. That spot that you spent all that time polishing right here, yep, that's where you want it. So you're just going to lightly hold that up while inserting the old pin of the firing. Press in with this just to make it a little easier for you guys to see. And as you can tell, not quite right yet, but as soon as you get it to the right spot, it should pop down. There it goes. So now we have a captured firing pin. As you can tell, spring is good. Okay, hope you guys can catch that on the camera. Let me zoom in a little bit, make this a little easier. So, you see how nice and smooth that is now? And then this part, nice and smooth. So once you get it in, the spring will pop back out and will allow you to work the firing pin. Now for what is quite possibly the most complicated part, you can also verify it just by looking through this hole here. I don't know if it'll focus on that. There you go. So you should be able to see light and you'll just see the edge of the ears on the firing pin. That's how you know it's in the correct orientation. Now you're going to take this, which is your new roll pin, and you're going to drive it home. I'm going to put a little bit of lube on it because it doesn't take a whole lot. But that little extra bit right there will help you greatly. So I'm going to again grab my 1/8 inch punch. This is what I'm going to be driving the roll pin in with. And this one I'm going to use on the other side as a slave pin. So we are just going to push that in. Now you can see we have captured the firing pin. And this is not the easiest to do, but just to get it started, you're going to use the plastic side, not the brass side. You don't want to dingus up your new fucking roll pin. I'm going to go ahead and start it. The slit goes to the top of the slide, so it should be facing you. And you know, just be prepared to reset this every so often. As you can see, the firing pin block is working. I am going to keep my finger over the firing pin while I drive this in, and I just want to check and see if it is. Holy fuck me, look at that. So this pin is actually tapered, which means the tapered end goes in first as the slave pin to go ahead and hold that. And now I can hold it flush down on my bench block. Starting to wonder if perhaps this pin goes in the other way. We have our slave pin, and that's just going to help us guide it. Now obviously, as you can tell, I'm going to have to pop this out, but once it gets started and it's going in, it'll kind of sort of align itself. Okay, so a little bit of cussing, screaming, and swearing later. We've got it started. I've got it laid up on the bench block. As you can see, I'm using this Dremel bit as a slave just to kind of make it a little bit easier. The grease helps, and you're just gonna drive that sucker home. Make sure that the slit stays up. I'm gonna back the slave out a little more now and just keep driving it. As you're popping this in, it's actually compressing that roll pin, so. 18,000 PSI. It's a good thing. It's what you want. Okay. And okay, so now we're at that point, we're at that moment where you want to fully compress the firing pin all the way. Once it starts, it'll keep it. Shit. So I'm right on that edge, okay? So you know, I am right on that edge. You are putting in a lighter firing pin block spring, by the way. So we're gonna go ahead, run that slave pin back in, compress in. So we're going to let this do the work and help us keep it compressed, okay? So should need just a few more whacks and we're golden. There we go. And we're just going to take that. Oh yeah, she's going now. We're still kind of on the cusp of losing the firing pin. As you can see, we're close. It's just about there. And eventually I'm going to have to pull that slave pin out because I can't beat it all the way in. But I'm going to go ahead and do my cool little punch trick just to compress the firing pin in a little bit more. There we go. So now the firing pin is fully compressed. Clean that up a little bit. Check our depth over here. So now we're done futzing with the firing pin. We can just focus on driving that sucker home. You're going to take the 1/8 inch punch, because now we don't want to dingus up our slide, right? Oh yeah, she's driving like butter now. That's what we want. Just make sure you don't dingus your slide. And if you do, well, I did try to warn you. I'm using the 1/8 inch to drive it down flush, and then I'm going to use the next size down punch to do the rest of the work. The slit is still facing up in the correct orientation. Everything is going right. So now all we're going to do is just drive this sucker in, and what you're trying to do is get it to where it's equal on both sides. Okay? Ooh, doggy. We're getting there. So hopefully it'll focus. There you go. Just kind of see what I see. So you're just trying to sink that pin to where it's equal on both sides. Gentle taps. I'm not beating the shit out of it. And again, we're going to check. So put your 1/8 inch punch in, slide your fingernail down to where it makes contact with the serration. You can check your depth. And do the same on the other side. Cool. I'm going to give this one last little love tap. We're there, gentlemen, ladies, whatevers. There we go. Again, check your depth. So I'm going to go on this side, slide my fingernail down to where it touches the serration. Maintain that position when you pull the punch out. And I'm going to do the same here, and yeah, we're there. So that's it. That's all there is to doing the slide. Now we're going to check function. Firing pin should not stick out of the breech face while I compress it with the hammer. Or with the punch, I should say. So I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm hoping that it'll focus. But I'm going to poke the back of the firing pin, and the firing pin does not protrude. That is a good sign. Now we're going to push in the firing pin block and push the firing pin forward, and we should get full extension on the firing pin. And as you can see, we do. So hopefully that came out on the video. One last quick wipe down with the clean side of the microfiber, dirt, gunk, junk, or debris. Run it home. Check for function. Decock. There we go. Load our snap cap. Holy shit. So, just that little bit of work that I did on the firing pin stop, this is nice and clean now. It was a little gritty. Yeah, I can hear the snap cap snapping, so the firing pin is doing its job. The return spring is good. But even just this little I haven't even got into polishing the trigger yet. Good Lord, I'm gonna love this. So again, check the decocker, right? No hammer follow, which is good. Of course, we haven't polished any of those surfaces yet. But just replacing the firing pin block spring and the firing pin spring itself, yeah, that's not a placebo. God, I wish I had a trigger pull gauge. So take a look at the action and see how smooth that is. It's helped. It's helped a little bit, just a teeny, eensy weensy little bit, but it helped. So I'm happy. I like that. Go ahead. Cool. So just that little bit has actually made a marked improvement. Tomorrow, I am really excited to see how this goes tomorrow. I'm Byron. Thank you for sticking in. This is part 1. We'll get to part 2 tomorrow, and then we'll show you the final results. See you in the next one. Stay safe. And just have a nice day, dude. Got everything set up to do part 2 of the CZ P07 trigger spring polish and upgrade. So we have 3 springs that are left. We got this one, and this one. So here's your hammer spring. This is your trigger return spring, and then this is your disconnector spring, that small tiny little fella in there. You're going to need your 1/8 inch, 3/32, and 1/16. You're going to need a micro tip, flat or slotted or standard, depending on your vernacular. You may potentially need a hammer. As an aircraft guy, I believe that nothing can't be solved without the judicious use of a hammer. So you need a hammer. This is a very nice little hammer. It's great for, if you do a bunch of different gunsmithing projects. Gonna need a microfiber. I'm using Super Lube, which is a PTFE lubricant. You're gonna need some type of a container for your old parts. Got some 1000 grit sandpaper here, and I got some flits for the polish. Additionally, you might want to get you some isopropyl alcohol. I'm using 99%. You may want to get you a nice soft mat to work on for your surface. Definitely get your coffee. Just make sure you're in a nice, calm, happy place, because this is the part of the operation that can get a little bit frustrating. The last thing you're going to need, some type of rotary tool with a flexible cable. I recommend. You don't have to have the flex cable, but really it's nice. I'm going to give you guys a link down in the video description to that particular machine. It is an affiliate link, however the machine is 30 bucks. You don't pay any extra. I get a little something that helps me make videos for you. So let's go over this a little bit. It's also definitely recommended that you have a bench block of some type. For $7 and something cents, go onto the Mcarbo website and just buy it. You're gonna use it. This is not only for your CZ pistols. This is for pretty much any small little projects where you got to bang pins out, knock pins in, hold it, sit it up, do a little polishing, and what have you. It's a very useful thing to have around. So obviously you're going to want to lay your tools out to where you have them within easy reach of you. I've already stripped the slides since we did the polishing on the firing pin block. Keep a clean workspace. So have an extra baggie or something to put the old springs in, because you're definitely not going to want to get them confused. And this is what I'm going to put all of the original components in. We've already replaced the roll pin, but it's always good to have an extra one with any CZ pistol, because sometimes the roll pins can break. Though the upgraded one is reputed not to do that anywhere near as much. And here's the spring. So this is our old hardware box, bag, what have you. All the pins and whatnot I'm going to be taking out in here. And I'm using a little bowl or tobacco can in this case, just because I can put a little isopropyl alcohol in there and do a nice deep clean on the parts before I go ahead and reassemble them. So let's go ahead, get you repositioned, because I'm broke and I only have one camera. So support the channel, buy a rotary tool. You need one, you do. Let's go through the anatomy of a CZ P07 real quick. So This is your trigger return spring. Yeah, baby, there you go. So, you see that weird, goofy looking spring? There you go. That is your trigger return spring. I'm gonna go ahead and hold up the new one just so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. This is a tiny little fella. That is your disconnector spring. So you definitely don't want to lose that. Here is your hammer spring. Hammer strut spring, main spring. Has a bunch of different names, all does the same thing. So it makes the hammer go forward and strike the primer with enough force to set it up. And lastly, we get to this weird little looking jabby right here, okay? Oh, come on. All right, there we go. I guess that's about as focused as it's gonna get, but this is your trigger return spring. This is one of the springs that we are gonna be replacing. So the first step is gonna be knocking this pin out right here. Hopefully you guys can see that. Right there. We're gonna push that out. This is your trigger bar, and you can see your disconnector lever kind of sort of right there. See the trigger bar wiggling back and forth there? A little hard to get the angle while you're doing this all by yourself, but there's your trigger bar. You can see the spring now for sure up front for the trigger return spring. You have your ejector, one of the points of disassembly for the fire control mechanism. You have a decocker lever, which you can see the little sear surfaces down in there. Those are going to be important. Pay attention to that decocker spring because that is not going to be replaced, but there's a goofy looking leg on it, and just kind of splice this in. So this is going to look a little weird if I forget to edit this out. Righty, so here you've got that little hump on the trigger bar there. You see the trigger bar right there. That little hump is part of what is your disconnector mechanism, okay? So it prevents the gun from firing out of battery and when you don't want it to. Now we've got the trigger bar itself. You can see the trigger returns. There you go. That is the trigger bar return spring, that weird, goofy looking, crazy leg thing. Now we're going to come down. So that weird hump is your firing pin block device, right? So what that does is that gives you, if the gun is out of battery, meaning it's not all the way forward, it will prevent the firing pin from going forward. This is what gives you drop safe, and this is also what gives you a little bit of additional safety to prevent out of battery detonation. Ejector, your decocker engagement surfaces here are a little bit rough. Once we polish this surface down here, the sear and the hammer, without changing the geometry, that's the key, just polish it up, we're going to have a smooth, buttery feel. Everything that you're seeing moving right now is going to get polished. So let's get after it. Sorry about the sidebar. Hopefully I'll remember to edit that out. Maybe I won't. Take a look at how that sear plays, and you can kind of get a feel for it on what we're going to be polishing. So basically, whenever you have metal on metal, metal pushing metal, etc., you have a little bit of friction. So if you have a really nice slick surface on all of these contact points, you're going to have a trigger that the only thing you're fighting at that point is the springs. So let's get after it. Let's beautify this bad boy. You're going to set it up on your bench block. This is the first part. We're going to shove this out, and we're going to make sure that the hammer is forward for this, whatever size that is, 3/32. Just finger pressure is all it should take. Try running it out on this side. There it goes. Okay. So from right to left, pops out easily. I don't know if yours will be the same. Mine sure did. So you can see right here, you got to overcome that groove to get it to pop out easily. Now, as you can see, the punch has captured that spring. You're going to keep your thumb or your finger or whatever you can fit in there. You're going to keep something over that so the spring doesn't go flying off, and just slowly let the pressure off. So here you go. You can see this is the original. Now the trigger comes. Now your trigger comes up and out. You're not trying to force anything, okay? And I just realized I forgot to take off the trigger bar spring. So you're going to use your flat tip, come under the trigger bar, and there's a little spring, and you're just going to pop it up and over just like that, okay? Be very careful because we're not replacing that spring either. Because it was under spring tension, did not want to play ball, did not want to come out of position. That's a good thing. So now you're going to take your micro tip, your flat tip, small screwdriver, jeweler's screwdriver, electronic screwdriver, tweaker, whatever it is you choose to call it, and you're going to cock the hammer back, and you're going to create just a little bit of space by gently prying out on the decockered lever. You're going to pry out just a hair. You don't need to Superman this. Then you're going to use this, and you're going to push down on it, which is going to release it. And you can already see it's starting to come out now. Keep control over that spring, because that spring's going to pop. Right, so this side of the decocker, you're just going to rotate it up. As you can see, the decocker spring is now released. This little leg, as you rotate it into place, fits in there just so you got to pay attention to that. And you're just going to kind of, this side is disconnected. We'll go ahead and pop that out. That is the left side. Tweezers would be kind of a godsend if you happen to have those. I'm going to go ahead and pop that spring out so I don't lose it. So this crazy little leg right here, that crazy little leg actually goes into a hole down there. Just take it nice and easy. You can see where some of those engagement surfaces, such as here on the decocker, could benefit from being a little more polished. We're going to do that. We're just going to be polishing the top of it, by the way. And there's another spring right here. So that, hopefully that'll come out. But right here, right there, it's smaller on one side and bigger on the other. So this is a directional pin. You're going to push it from the right side to the left. And before we do that, you have to unlock the pin. This is your ejector. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull it down and then push forward, and it'll just kind of pop out when you get it just right. You're going to have to do this a few times. There it goes. There's your ejector. This long leg sits down into a roll pin that's down inside the frame. We'll get to that hopefully in a little bit, but it's important to remember that the leg goes under. Got the pin loose. We're going to set her up like so. Grab our 3/32. We're just going to push it out gently. Here's our sear pin. As you can see, one side is bigger than the other. Goes through this way. Set that into our parts bucket. Oops. Be very careful because she will pop. So now we've got the sear out, and this is one of the surfaces that we're going to be polishing, so you're going to see why. And then here is the engagement surface. When we get the hammer out, we'll walk through that. And this little area here with the disconnector that kind of looks like a ball bearing, we're going to be polishing that up a little bit as well. So we're going to go ahead and set the small parts in here for now. And we've got our tiny little spring. Remove the trigger bar. So you can see there's a little hook that pops up. Here is the trigger and the trigger bar, and yep, we're definitely going to be polishing the shit out of that thing. It's going to look like a mirror when we're done. Right, oh, don't want to lose that. You're going to take your punch, and you're just going to compress the mainspring slightly. I've seen some people where they put a punch right here and then use the pistol itself to do the compression, so maybe I can get lucky there. Give that a go, see how that works for me. Oh, look at that, works beautiful. There's your pin, and hopefully you caught that. I put the punch under here and press down. Over that, you're just going to pull your punch out, which is acting as a slave pin right now, and you're going to decompress it. So now you've got your tube. Here is the hammer spring, which we are replacing, so we're going to put it in the old springs box. This is the one nice thing about having an exploded parts diagram on this here tech mat, is it lets you just kind of sort of see how that all goes together. Now, as you don't want to use your punch for that, but you can see how it was all retained. And pull the hammer up and out. And you have your disconnect here, which is going to come up and out, and that's going to get a little polish and love too. And now we can really see. So this surface right here, that's what's got to get the polish. That's what's going to have your probably 50% improvement right there, is just that. Just polishing that and getting all of those tool marks out of there. There we go. So you can kind of see there's tool marks all up on it, and that's what you're going to be polishing out with that 1000 grit. So this was the worst of the worst, guys. If you can get it apart, you can get it back together, I promise. Don't be scared. And then you have your hook right there. I'm going to do just a little bit here. You can already see where some of those surfaces have a little wear on them just from breaking it in. So we're just going to polish those surfaces a little bit because we are going to be polishing this area of the hammer and this area of the hammer without changing the geometry. Because if you change the geometry, you can potentially make it unsafe. Give the innards of the frame a nice wipe. Go ahead and pop your back strap off. If you're curious how it's going to feel with different back straps, this is a great time to do that. Just wipe it out, get any excess oil and crud out. It's a wonderful time to do this. More of that grit and crud you get out of there, the better the result is going to be ultimately. There is kind of a point of diminishing returns, so just so you're aware. Also, just want to point this out. This would be a great time to run some 1000 grit sandpaper here, just in case yours was like mine and it had just a little bit of a ridge there. I went ahead and buffed all of that out, so now it's just a very nice to hold, nice to feel. Go ahead and put my back strap back on. All right, so now we're pretty much done with this for right now. So we'll go ahead and set that off to the side. If you have a little lubrication, it just helps everything slide in nicer. If you don't believe me, ask your mom. These are the parts that you're going to be polishing. So in regards to this trigger bar, if you run your finger across it, you'll feel where those machine marks are. This is the area you really want to pay particular attention to because this is related to the polishing that we did in part 1. This is your engagement surface over here. As you can, I don't know if you can hear that. That's rough, and you should not be getting that kind of gritty. With this one, you just got to remember you're removing the tooling marks and then you're just going to bling this whole thing out with the polisher. Next, this is your disconnector lever and the little bearing. I should note that it's a shoulder fit, so it just pops in. We're going to polish the whole thing, but this is the area you really want to pay attention to because this is going to help give you that nice, smooth, buttery trigger pull, which is the entire fucking point of doing this, right? Here is the sear, and you can see the engagement surface there. And you can see the engagement surface here on the hammer. We're going to be removing all of those tool marks, bringing it up to a nice, brilliant mirror finish, and reassembling it, and quite possibly having an incredible fucking trigger pull. So you're just going to take your lubricated sandpaper. You don't want to do this dry. We're going to start here with the hammer because I feel that's going to be the easiest to show you. And remember, you're not trying to change the geometry. You just want to work the engagement surface flat. Use your fingertip for pressure. Doesn't take a lot of pressure, okay? You're just trying to get those tooling marks down and off. And then when you hit it with the polisher, you can really get in there and get the rest of it. But you want to knock all the high spots off. And again, you're not changing the geometry, okay? Very important that you guys understand that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and clean off that grease real quick. Check and see where we're at. Just in the interest of expediency and because I'm actually running a little bit low on memory and battery at the moment, I'm going to go ahead and check back in with you when I'm done. But that little bit has already made a big improvement. Still have a long way to go. But just that there has already made a big improvement. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do what I got to do, and then I'm going to show you the results when I'm done. Later. Do a little check-in since I've just gone ahead. That is the sear. See, I've hit it very nicely. There's still some tooling marks I can't get out, but I've polished it now to the point where it doesn't matter because it's nice and slick. And you can see, this may help you to see like how they interact, right? So. She's nice and buttery now. Polished up that roller bearing on the disconnector a little bit. And if you notice, I just polished the tip, which is the part that actually interacts with everything else. And just a little quick love on the engagement surfaces. But, oh yeah, also the end of the roller here where it makes contact, but you don't really, and we're getting ready to start on the one that's going to take the most time, and this is the trigger bar. So all of these areas where it engages the side of the frame, where it interacts with the slide and the firing pin, where it interacts with the trigger, all of that's got to get polished up. So this is going to take a while. So you're just going to take your 1000 grit, make sure it's greasy. Hopefully you can see that. We're just using grease on 1000 grit, and we're just using our little rotary polish tool when we get to that point to bling it up. These are the only parts that I'm polishing. I'm not really, here it is. Just give you that little detail there. See how nice and shiny and beautiful and smooth that is? Here's the hammer. You can see that. Nice and beautiful. Here's the sear. Nice and beautiful. And here's the trigger bar. Looks a little different, doesn't it? So now every possible point of mechanical resistance, friction, however you choose to envision it, has essentially been removed. So we're done with the polishing, and it's time for the hard part. Let's get this sucker put back together. First part we're going to focus in on is getting the hammer and the disconnector back in. So the disconnector has to go vertically. It's got a little nub right here that faces out. So you're just going to gently insert it. You're also going to need the pin. There's the mainspring pin. This is it here. You can verify by just sticking it through there, making sure that it's the right size. So this little shoulder here in the center needs to be oriented this way. And you're going to put it in basically as I'm looking at it, you're going to be coming from the right to the left. Okay, there it goes. So now we're lined up, and you can tell because this will rotate down. Shoulder is outboard. We're coming in from the right side of the frame. Okay, the pin is in. Once that disconnector drops down, it's locked in place. And that pin's not going to come out of there anymore. It's actually a pretty slick design, if you really think about it. But you have to line it up so that shoulder can properly engage. Now, if you decide for whatever reason to take that pin back out, well, stand the hammer up, stand the disconnector up, and that pin will come right out. So the next step, and I'm not sure that maybe this is the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it, I'm not really sure. I'm just kind of feeling this out right now, but definitely keep your trigger bar spring out of the way. That's one of the last things that you're going to want to do. This is my first time doing it, so you guys are getting to watch me do it. And hopefully that gives you guys a little confidence. So this is how it plugs in, just like this. Got a little edge there, keeping the trigger bar in. Okay. And then at the rear, just going to take our little flat tip screwdriver, pop it up, and get the trigger bar to go under that. And then it all locks in. There we go. That's locked in. Trigger bar is done. Go ahead and line this pin back up. It's important to note there's a hole right there, and that hole is where the trigger return spring leg goes into. The short leg goes here and the long leg faces the front. There we go. Everything's lined up, and now gently insert it. This is the part where you really need that zen. You need to be calm. The trigger pin is in. It is captured by the disconnector here at the rear. The disconnector just kind of goes up and over it. So the trigger bar sits behind that disconnector. Just want to verify your work. Okay, we're good. And remember, on the disconnector, there's a shoulder that faces outboard. Okay? So I saw in the Mcarbo video that he installs the hammer spring next. I don't know that I want to do that right now, but I kind of, after looking at all of this, I kind of see that there's a little bit of wisdom in it, because it's going to put a little bit of tension and keep that hammer from flopping around. So you're just going to insert your new spring, right? Oh yeah, that's a good thing. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this. Me personally, I like to use the 3/32, pop it in. Like I said, this is where you got to have that zen going. We've got it all lined back up again. So now we have it captured perfectly. It's in place. We're using the punch now as a guide or a slave, however you want to look at it. This is all lined up. Trigger pin is still good. Hammer pin is still good. As long as those two things are good, the disconnector is down up over the trigger bar. We are golden, baby. Turns out the trigger pin is the same diameter, and this is the lightened trigger return spring. So this leg is going to go down in the little hole, and then this longer leg is going to go up over the top. You guys can see the trigger return spring is in there now, and more importantly, the short leg is in the hole and the long leg is in the little cutout for it right there. So moving on to the next step. You want to verify that you have good trigger return, and I can't even describe how much better this feels. So you're going to go ahead and put your lightened sear spring in there, and in case you're wondering, this bench block is designed to hold your pistol like so. We're going to be putting in the ejector, the disconnector, the sear, and the return spring. Okay, so make sure those are all clean and ready to go. There's a big end and a small end. Hope you can see this, but it's going to go in like this. We're going to have to get a couple of parts in place first, most notably the sear and the disconnector. And then once we're all lined up, we're just going to pop that pin in, and it'll lock in and it'll stay in place. Then we just pop the ejector down, up, and in, and then that whole pin and mechanism will be retained and locked in. We're going to go ahead and line up the sear, and if you take a look, you're going to go corner to corner. That's how that fits in, and you're just going to get this through both of the ears, and you're going to leave a little bit of space, all right? So now you've got to get your disconnector in. Remember, this is a two-piece assembly, and the bearing goes outboard. So the bearing is going to go to the right side of the pistol as you're looking at it. Gently line it up. There we go. Remember, you've got your lightened sear spring in there as well. There it is. Okay, so now we've got the ejector here. Now there's a curve to it that bends up and over, and so it's going to go in this orientation, but you got to rock it down, under. And if you pay attention to this little groove right there, that is how it goes in. Right, there we go. So you're going to bring it in, up, and lock it in place. And then you're just going to lock it in place. And remember to make sure that that spring is compressed. Take that flat tip and just shove it back to make sure that it's fully locked in. Okay? It can appear as though it is actually locked in, and it's not. See that? There we go. You heard the click, you heard it lock in, and we can move on to the headache of lining up this goddamn decocking mechanism. Okay, so we're going to go over a couple little things so that this part goes smoothly. This is your decocker spring, right? So it's going to come this orientation, and that leg is going to be captured under that bar. Okay? Hope you can see that. It will make sense when you actually have the pistol in front of you. This long, crazy looking leg right here. Right? This little guy. You're going to see a little roll pin down in the frame. So, you're going to position it with the short leg forward. This is the hardest part just because of the lighting. Yes, sir. And I lost it. Had it, I lost it. Story of my life. Spring in the hole, and I've got the decocking lever run through it. And this is the part that requires a little bit of love, attention, and patience, because now you've just got to get it to go through the hole. Okay, so now we've got it to go through the hole. So it's a square fit. There we go. So now we've just got it lightly captured there, which is just kind of helping me to balance the force, because this is two different springs acting on it right now. And this, to me, is, so it's a little bit hard to explain. But you have to get the decocker lever pointed up. I've pulled the decocker lever back just a little bit, and you're just going to kind of gently line it up. And we're going to go ahead and put the spring tension on to the decocker. Once you get it above the trigger bar, that trigger spring actually kind of helps keep it into place and get that leg captured. So now the leg is captured. Verify that it is still in the pocket. Take your handy dandy phone with your flashlight, and I hope you can see that. But you're just going to verify that everything is where it's supposed to be. Now we've got the decocker spring captured. So we'll engage. Okay. Fuck. I just lost my tension on the... Basically what you're going to do is you're going to get both of the wings pointed up, and you're just trying to work this one to where that square will line up and engage the shaft. And you've also got to get it through the frame like so. So we're almost there. We're almost where we need to be. It's kind of a pain in the butt. We're just gonna... And I've lost the tension on the decocker spring. Amazing. Right. This can be the most frustrating part. This is the most frustrating part, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not unachievable, right? Gently massage this little motherfucker. Ah, you little bitch. Press down on the ejector. We're gonna set this down. I'm gonna take a little break. All right, so here I am about an hour and a half later, and I have finally got it all back together. And I'm going to try to walk you through it. This is not the easiest thing in the world. It is, but it isn't, okay? So what I was doing wrong, cock the fucking hammer. Seriously, cock the fucking hammer. So then you flip both of the wings up, you get them both pointed up at the top, and then you just kind of pop it together, hit the ejector, and it'll snap in right into the square. Then you just rotate it down, and there's a little nub right here See that? Works like a fucking charm. To get this side in, you have to press down on the trigger bar while it's pointed up, and then there's a little wing on the inside of this that will just pop in. So you have to get the spring in place. You have to have this pointed up. Get your spring in place. Keep pressure on the flat here in the vertical position, and then with the hammer cocked, you've got it all lined up. You just hit the ejector, and then it just popped in. I had to do a function check, okay? Decock works. Freaking beautiful. It's beautimous. All right, you guys kind of get an idea. There we go. Turn it at the angle. You can really see it blinking there. Try it on single action. Woo, that is sweet. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, Lord, yes. Yeah. Yeah. This has netted over a 50% reduction. Line it up, send it home. God, that is just... There's still a tiny bit of creep. And I mean tiny. Like the DA pull. Look. Watch the hammer. There's no stutters whatsoever on this. See that? Just smooth. Beautiful. Ooh. Okay. So this is how you normally carry it. You're always going to have a little bit of slop in there. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. That's just the design of the system. But watch this. Dude, that is... All right, so I'm a happy dude, right? This is awesome. All that polishing, all that work, all that headache, worth it. Absolutely. I'm going to put in one of my Tradition snap caps just because you can hear it. You can hear the spring when it hits. And I want that because no problems whatsoever. Firing pin is working. That is just amazing. That is sex. That is just... That's more than a 50% reduction. Now, I don't have a trigger pull gauge with me handy right now, but I will easily say that that is about 6 to 7 pounds. Beautiful. Now let's see if the reset is any better. Mostly because, all right, we're going to show it. Very positive click. There it is. So if I can do it at home, you can do it at home. I'm going to put links down to everything that I've used in the video. It's the best way to support the channel. If you're new to the channel, please hit the like, hit subscribe, you know, help me, boost me up so I can make more videos like this for you. So I'm Byron. Y'all have a great rest of your day. I'm gonna see you in the next one.